We've seen what you do on the stream before you go out fishing. You do the same thing what we just saw. Prepare your line, make sure good leader butt's on there.
Yep.
How would you prepare the first cast if you're going to go fish for a fish that be up in here? Can you just walk us through it?
I would. Actually, I would start by thinking about it as we approach from back here. And I might actually lower my body down a little and watch the river for just a little bit. I love to do that. As we were setting up in here, we saw a fish rise. And we kind of walked through and it's like, oh, hey. And it was in a little bit closer than we thought. So I would watch the river just a little bit. And I enjoy that personally. And then I would slowly approach the river and definitely fish the inside seams. I can't tell you how many people I see walk right over that water.
Right.
It's amazing. And I've done it too. I've walked out there and all of a sudden stood there and looked back and said, oh no, what am I doing? I'm standing right on the first part I was going to fish. So that's the first part. Walk up to that and then you can get ready. You can start kind of looking around and see how you're going to approach it by breaking it up into sections.
Okay, we're going to start here. Let's just say we have a fish rising just about 10 o'clock in front of us.
Yeah, that's a good example. Let's say that we did see that guy rise. I like to be at this classic angle that you hear people talking about because of the way the fish can see, you know, their field of vision. So you're down behind them a little bit. It also helps your presentation as far as how you let the fly come down over the top of them. I always when I'm getting my line out, I always take the line off first. You know, hold the fly in hand. I'll show you just what I would do.
Let's just show us. The people out here want to see it.
Let's pretend that that fish is not too far away. I'm going to get on your other side.
Sure.
I'm a lefty. I always like to cast off to the side. I've spooked too many fish by trying to time it, and I always like to go short too. If I land short, no big deal. I don't usually spook the fish. That's another common mistake that you see people do. They cast over the top of it and say, oh, I need to make an adjustment. So I take off a little line. Let's just say, for example, that fish right there, and there was a fish right there, is about 15 feet away. Check my back cast, make sure I'm okay.
Yep. More back casts eat flies than anything else.
And it's always the first one. So you know, I'm a good tree catcher too. So what I would do is time my cast over here without too many false casts because the fish have a tendency to see it. That looks about right.
Yep.
So and I like to
You've measured it. What you've done, you've measured your cast.
Exactly, and it's no harm over here because it's not really going to affect the fish. You don't necessarily, depending on the river that you're on, you don't necessarily have to crouch down. I mean, it could be some serious backaches. I just have a habit of doing that, just crouching down, and I think it helps with your approach getting low. Then I don't like to cast over the top of the fish a lot with false casts.
Nope.
I just like to eliminate all the steps of casting and start fishing. So what I would do is bring it out here like this, get it to where I want it, and lay it right over the fish.
One cast, that's it.
Yep.
Now, okay, right here, immediately, you can see that. That's a belly. That's causing the fly. Now, you did a little mend there. That's so important. I like the way you mended that. Show us how you did that.
With a little flip, let's do the cast again and watch how the belly develops because we have a current here that's going through the middle that's creating a tongue. Little Belgian cast right there, which is the swirl around cast that you've seen before. And see the belly developing?
Yep, the belly is developing right there.
Exactly. And that can't happen because what it's going to do is
it's dragging the fly.
It's drag the fly under.
But if you tried to set the hook right now, you wouldn't hook any fish.
No, because you're too far away from it. Not to mention the presentation's terrible. So what I like to do is lay it down and flip the belly in the other way.
Rather than pick it up and roll it and cause a ripple on the water.
Exactly, which is called a mend. There's a couple different ways you can get rid of that problem right there of the belly developing. You can aerialize the mend, which is throw the belly in the air.
Right.
Or you can do what most people do, which is lay it down and kind of decide where it's going to happen and come up with the rod and a nice gentle flip.
Right.
I do two of them because there's another current right here.
That's true.
And then bring in that extra line and you see we have just enough slack right there. So, and you know, almost anywhere that you fish, you're going to see that develop. It may only take you one cast.
You know, Pete, one of the things that's really going to happen for the beginning anglers out there, if you have a problem in your cast where you're using too much wrist, you're really going to find out because first of all, you're going to catch the trees behind you, but you're not going to have a straight presentation.
Right.
And I'd like to just show what the difference between the presentation in locking that wrist and doing that short stroke cast compared to a wide open cast.
Okay.
Would you like to give us a wide open cast?
Yeah, I'll give you a wide open cast. First thing I'm going to have to do is I know that I'm going to have trouble with.
We're going to step out a little bit.
Right already.
That's good. That's good.
So And another thing too is there's so many variables with a really floppy wrist.
Right.
I mean, we got all sorts of casting styles and they're all legitimate, but you don't see a lot of really floppy wrists. It's a controlled wrist, if anything.
Now let's take a look. I want
So
people to see the. I want to see the dark side.
Okay, go over.
And so watch what happens when he tightens the wrist up, and you're going to see a much nicer, more accurate cast. It's going to be less of a belly when you have a much better cast. Look how much tighter it goes out, how the line lands more evenly on the water. Very nicely there.
Just eliminating that. I like to think of it as like throwing darts.
Now, one of the things immediately, as we've talked about and throughout this presentation, is the minute he makes that cast, that finger goes, the line goes right to the finger. You don't see Pete fishing it like this because you got to be able to set the hook.
Line management is huge. As I tell all the people that I fish with, all the anglers that I'm helping to catch fish, you got to do your line management. Once you get your cast down and you're there for the presentation, it's all for naught if you lay a perfect presentation in there and you're not ready to go. Because this is what you get right here, which is, it's kind of comical. You can hear the insert circus music here at that point. When they set the hook, they got the fish on and they're here all of a sudden.
Yep.
So what's the next thing? It's in the mouth. Up here.
But the fish is gone by then because your rod tips down, you had too much slack.
Exactly. So and then, you know, you remind them, you say, well, this works really well too. Just handing it to the finger so you got some line management.
Right.
Rather than the whole game up here where you're reaching.
We've been fishing upstream, which is one of the classic ways of fishing. But right now we've got fish rising right in front of us, and we're going to make a cast right in front of us. And that requires a little bit different cast too.
Absolutely.
Because you're going to immediately get dragged the minute it hits, aren't you?
Oh yeah. Anywhere below you or across from you or below you, you've got drag issue.
Okay, we'll come out here a little bit and show them how you're going to handle that.
Okay.
Also, you got a little bit of a problem too. And one of the things, while we're here, let me just mention, it's important to change the way you cast when you have trees behind you. What I can do is bring this rod up, I can make the cast, bring it back towards me and still get a presentation without hooking the trees behind it. And that is something you want to practice, different ways of changing your stroke to get an effect on your cast.
Yeah, a steeple cast, you think it's just at casting ponds and that type of thing.
No.
It's all over the place. I mean, you can, and you don't have to do, you know, the one you see on TV steeple cast where it goes straight up in the air. You can just do it a little bit and get it up there. Change your approach, you know, your point of attack.
Okay, you're immediately getting dragged right here.
Because it's straight across and
right.
you have that situation. So what I would opt for in this particular spot, we have some different cross currents and things like that. It's probably a reach cast.
Right.
But I'm actually going to throw it out there and see if it works.
Right.
And that's one issue when you're fishing downstream. You can't really cast over here. You can measure your distance, but you're gonna see whether it works or not. And a lot of times, I recommend just taking it out of there before it goes over the fish.
Right, absolutely.
Because you kind of see what's going to happen. So.
Or if you make a bad cast, leave it on until it gets out of the area.
Exactly. So let's try a reach cast to the left.
Yes, very nice. Now you can let that float down into the lower quadrant.
This one happened to work out perfectly for
this look
spot.
at that. Lines upstream. This is the kind of cast you do out of a boat.
Yep, exactly. Yep, it is drift boat fishing right here. And that one just particularly worked out well for here. You could also, I might also try an S cast, which is another form of aerial line.
Yep, very nice.
Just in case we have different cross.
Now, how did you do that? Let's walk through that little S cast for a second.
The S cast, if you have a fast current right here, slow current, fast current, this is going to work for you. The reach cast is going to work for you, but it's going to get eaten up by the current really fast, and it might actually create a belly quicker than you want. So you can actually time the S cast, which is coming up, and you're going to aerialize the mend again. But on its way out, you just take the tip of the rod and draw an S with it.
Right.
And it's really not that hard. It takes a little practice to get the muscle memory, but it's really not that hard.
Finesse in casting comes through practicing. The more you fish, the more you're going to get the any sport. You start getting the feel, and it becomes what? Automatic.
Yeah, it's built-in rope memory, and that's what's nice about it. That's when it becomes relaxing, and it's a great way to let energy out. And
you're not going to do this fishing twice a year.
No. And another thing is, this isn't going to work on your lawn.
Nope, nope, it's not going to work on your lawn.
Because you don't understand how the different currents of the water are going. You can practice it, but you're not going to see how it applies.
One thing I want to, while we're talking about this slackline cast, I want to just shoot one upstream here, Pete, and show them something. One of the problems when you're doing a lot of wade fishing, you're in deep water. Now I'm going to go out here and do it here. Since the fish are already spooked, I can do this. If I cast a straight line cast like this, straight up, especially in fast current, where the line is real straight, it's going to immediately start pulling downstream. And we talk a lot about, you know, the problems with drag, and it's mainly being pulled downstream when you're casting across. But this is actually coming right at you, and many times you never see this drag because the current is masking it. And by a slack line cast is when you make that cast, just pulling back a little bit. And see how there's a little slack in the line right here? Watch it again. We come out, we just pull back a little, and I'm still following the line down. I'm following it down, but notice that there's a little slight, and of course I've got to pick it up, otherwise, again, I'm going to have the same problem.
There's your line management again.
The line management. And it's a problem, and you notice it more when you get on big, spooky fish in spring creeks with heavy water. So it's important to learn this slack line. Everybody says you want a nice straight cast, but not at times you want that straight cast until the very last minute when you sit down with the presentation. Line to settle down, and once you learn that back off the power, reach mends and slack line cast become a lot easier, doesn't it?
Oh, tons easier. And I've heard it called stop cast.
Yep.
Stop cast.
I don't like the word stop cast because people stop.
Too hard. When you're teaching, the semantics are bad for that.
Boom, right there. You just got a wind knot.
Bam, because it's a subtle come to a stop, and you got to feel it come to a stop. So it's, yeah, I agree. Of course, all these casts have, what, 10 different names?
Now, one of the casts that's so important, and I think this is before we go downstream and start fishing downstream, is one I call the roll cast pickup. So many people say you want a roll cast because there's things behind you. But one of the most important casts is be able to aerialize the line. And what I'm doing right here is just bringing the rod up. And one of the things about learning how to do a roll cast, which you cannot do on the lawn, right,
true.
Pete?
Yep, it's very difficult to do anywhere but on really good water conditions.
And if you do it on a pond without moving water, it's another situation too, because it changes the dynamics. Because see, look at this, it's coming back. If I wait too long and try to do it, oh boy, I'm going to end up tangling myself. So now what I want to do with this is I want to take a lesson from spey casting, which is making a bigger rod. And this is one of the hardest things for people to understand with graphite rods. Graphite rods are stiff, and spey rods are flexible.
Yep.
You need it to flex. So with our stiff graphite rods, we have to learn to roll cast a wee bit different. And we raise the line off the water and almost a little flick of the wrist, like this, and it's up, and then we can make the cast. Now, watch for a second here, this cast is coming out, and I'll tell you, Pete can immediately tell he hates this when somebody goes like that, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Pop.
Yep, it slams into the water.
Well, it's just because rather than let the thing go all the way through, they just pull it out and pop the water. Now watch what we can do with a little bit of a roll cast. Now we let the line go completely out of the fish's vision. Okay, we just bring it up, flick, right there. No movement of the water. It's so much that this roll cast can do for you. It's really not a roll cast, it's a roll cast pickup. Boom. Right here, I've got the line rather than pulling it out of the water like that.
Oh, I would say that should be something that's part of everybody's repertoire. You got to use that.
Again, raise the rod to make it a little longer, and then rotate that wrist. And you actually want to let this kind of go up. If you're looking at a clock, I kind of aim for like 10 o'clock. Aim for 10 o'clock, and once it's at 10 o'clock, you bring the rod back, and you're ready to go.
Yeah, and the reason that he's doing that too is he doesn't want to make a mistake of having the roll cast flip around and tick the water right by the fish, because it can happen if you do this too low.
Yep.
So make sure that you have an up motion with the whole thing. It keeps you aerialized, it keeps the whole thing going.
You'll watch a lot of fishermen that will fish downstream or off and sort of at an angle. And I almost had a theory about this. I think it happened a lot with guides who drift fish, because they know if they get the fly ahead of the boat downstream, what's going to happen.
No, the presentation is there as far as the fly coming down through there.
And you're going to catch more fish. First of all, the fly gets there before the line gets there.
Exactly.
In other words, right now, if we cast upstream, Pete, what happens?
Well, there's commotion in the water. There's all sorts of presentation issues when you're right on the fish or right next to the fish. But when you're leading into the fish, it helps a lot. There are some spring creeks in Idaho that's the only way that you can catch a fish is to feed down to them.
As you can see right